Welcome to the Sangani Show, where we will talk about everything health, wealth, and wisdom. I came to the US in 1983 from Mumbai, India with $10.45 in my pocket and with a big dream in my heart. Now, I'm a practicing cardiologist, a businessman, an entrepreneur, life mentor, and most importantly, a dad. I have lost some, I won some. But every time I lost or won, I learned even more. And my success has not been easy, but finally I made it. And my next mission is to help you do the same. Learn from my experiences, and that is life is a business. Hi there, and hello. Welcome to the Sangani Show. My name is Dr. Bharat Sangani, your favorite doctor and the host. Today, we are going to talk about work-life balance, if there is anything like that. Everywhere you talk about how to do work-life balance. I have my views, and you will certainly hear them today, and we'll also hear the views of another individual who is also in a very tough situation of managing work and life, primarily because of the gender difference between me and her. And with the gender difference comes with some different responsibilities and different ways to live, and the demands that she has at home as well as at work. So today we have Nili Jaisinghani, who used to be at one time Nili Sangani, coming and joining us to share her thoughts, views, and experiences, and when it comes to the work-life balance. Welcome, Nili.
Oh, thanks, Dad. How are you?
I'm doing just fine. I'm very happy to see you on the same platform, and then love to educate myself as well as inform our listeners and viewers. How do you manage the difficult proverbial situation, work-life balance? So tell us a little bit about your background, your career, and then we'll dig into the real subject.
Of course. Well, before I do that, I just want to say that I'm so incredibly proud of you and you doing this show, because I have been the benefactor for now 31 years of everything that you've taught and learned and the wisdom that you've shared with me and my younger sister, Nikki. And it just makes me really happy that you are able to now have a forum to share it with the rest of the world. So I just wanted to say that before we started.
That's very cool. Thank you.
A little bit about me. I'm 31 years old. I'm married. I live here in Dallas. I love to dance. I have a little bit of a creative energy, but was also raised in a household where business was always at the forefront of discussions that we had around the table. And so I really took a liking for what I witnessed you do on the more entrepreneurial front, which was investing and developing and acquiring commercial real estate property. So right out of college, I started in investment banking, particularly in the real estate sector of this work. And after that, joined the family business. And I now run my own business, Ignite Investments, which is responsible for raising equity, or in layman's terms, the money that's needed to fund these development projects that you and your team take on. And so I have a team of about 9 people that I manage, and we stay busy raising money for all these projects. And I'm very passionate about what I do, but I'm also very passionate about living life, which is why when I started my introduction, I started with what I like to do and who I am as a person outside of work, and then my career, because again, being work-life balance, I wanted to cover all facets of who I am, and hopefully can get more into that later into the discussion.
Sure. So for the audience who are watching and listening, if you need to raise money, you know who to go to, right? But having said that, tell us how do you define work-life balance?
So, to be completely honest with you, I don't think I have the answer to that question yet, because growing up with you, Mom, Nikki, that line was always blurred. So when we were at the dinner table, we flowed in and out of work and personal discussion frequently. I have done spreadsheets, which we can get into, about how to evaluate personal life decisions. And that's something that most people traditionally reserve for business analysis. I've used spreadsheets for personal analysis. So for me, everything has always blended together. And so I quite frankly am on a journey to answer that question for myself. And I think that at its foundation, if I were to define it, it's a very personal and individual choice of how much of each of those parts of your life you want to have importance and presence in your own being, so that you can then be happy and live a happy and fulfilled life. So I would say that there's not one answer that fits everyone, but everyone's striving for this perfect balance. And I'm just not so sure if it exists, which is why I'm having trouble answering what does that really mean and how do you go about achieving it. So it's a long answer, and to perhaps what you were looking for was just a definition, but that's how I feel about it currently.
No, I mean, essentially what you are saying is that it's very difficult to separate those two. And the structure of our show is such that normally any question I ask my guest, I also try to give my views towards it, and that's where the audience gets both the views. And personally, I do believe that there is no balancing between work and life. I think it's actually a life balance. So it doesn't need to have the word work in there at all. You constantly need to balance your life. And the way I'll dig into it as we grow more and more as to how a normal day should look like if you truly want to balance and things like that. But in an individual's life, you have to determine what is important to you. And you touched on that a little bit. You said, define your priorities. And once you define your priorities, then you put it out just like she said, everything in my life is all about Excel. The Word document almost doesn't exist. And then once you put the Excel, you figure out how important it is, and you start knocking those things out. And that's the balance. It's not that a particular day you will spend 8 hours in life and 16 hours in work and not sleep, or in vice versa, or multiple other permutation and combinations. So in my mind, the definition of work-life balance is actually life balance, and how do you to balance it. So something to think about it, but I think it does make sense to look entirely work as part of the life versus life and work separate, and create, whenever you put two items against each other side by side, it rather than complementary, they have a tendency to work against it. And the last thing you want is these two important facets in your life to work against you.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because what I was thinking about a lot when you changed the definition, which I actually really am intrigued by, is that it, for a woman, I think releases a lot of that guilt. Because I think with women, we're doing one thing and we're guilty that we're not doing the other. We're doing that thing and we're guilty we're not here where we are supposed to be on the life side or the work side. So I think women experience a lot more of that, because societally we have expectations to take care of our households, etc. So it's interesting when you redefine it as a life balance, then it's all about those individual choices, and not necessarily that I'm squarely in this category and I'm supposed to be in another, which then, to your point, that friction, I think in most women's cases, it also creates a lot of guilt. So it's interesting just shifting the paradigm slightly into a different context of approaching things. For people like me, at least, and who have the privilege, I'm a boss, I have the privilege of altering my schedule a little bit. I understand that there are some out there who don't have that privilege. If they're at work, they can't take another thing outside of that commitment that they've made to be there for that many hours to do that task. But for me personally, even with working at home with COVID, that's an interesting way of looking at it.
No, that's very true, and it changes. Rather than fighting, it becomes a gelled structure, and then you pick and choose what is important to you that day. You brought a very good point, and that's what I started this discussion. Is it's much more difficult for women to prioritize and continue to manage this as compared to people like us, men, who don't, the way we structure the society, don't have as many responsibilities of multiple other areas of life as a woman does. So I think it will be doing a tremendous injustice in creating guilt feeling for the 50% of the world's population by just asking them to balance both the things, versus let them create their own shifting of priorities on a day-to-day basis, and they don't have to feel guilty. I still remember one of the things Oprah Winfrey said once, and I think you've heard that many times from me, and that is, you cannot have everything and you cannot do everything. That balance is almost impossible. You will have to delegate here to have everything here, or you need to let this go just to have full control. So these are very important messages from very successful people in the world, and well, as you know on this show, the whole idea is for me to share my experiences with everybody and collect more experiences from you, collect experiences from my guests, and then create a bigger collection of experiences so we all can get benefited. So tell me, how does your normal day look like in balancing these things?
So you always told me, which I'm trying to implement in my life currently, is that the moment you wake up and take a shower, get exercise out of the way. Just finish it, get it done and out of your life. And because it's such a critical and important component of health, I try to start with a walk. So I'll wake up around 6:30. I'll be out in my neighborhood at around 7, making sure I time the sun so that it's not too aggressively hot outside. And I do that for about 45 minutes. I monitor my splits on my Apple Watch. I come back, immediately take a shower. And one thing I have done recently in my routine is I do not look at my emails when I immediately wake up. I used to do that. But what would happen is I would get so much anxiety to then go start responding to people that I had to stop. Otherwise, I would skip my morning routine. So then I get dressed, get ready, I have a protein shake or some sort of breakfast. If I'm not feeling breakfast, I skip breakfast altogether. And then I start my day. And I have a series of calls. I am very strict to what's on my calendar. So I don't put a lot of thought between the hours of 9 to 5 as what I'm doing, because my calendar is dictating what I'm doing. So if it's call after call after call, which now we have no Zoom meetings, so that's technically what I do. I try to ask my assistant not to schedule me 5 hour worth of calls in a row. I try to take a break around noon to make sure I eat something or eat a snack. Then at 5 o'clock, I like to play with my cats and do some things that make me happy. Talk to Samit, my husband, about his day. And that's usually when I start waning down from the calls. I try to eat something. My friends, my sister, family always joke that I eat at senior citizen timing. So I eat around 6:30. And then I'll do a little bit more emails and things that I just couldn't get to earlier in the day. And by that time, it's 8, 9 o'clock, and I like to watch TV with my husband. So we generally watch 1 or 2 episodes. Last night we watched this amazing show on Netflix of Formula One. They follow the real Formula One teams that are racing and get into the details of how that works, which I found was fascinating. So sometimes it's educational in some senses to have something, some completely different world that you're immersed in, or maybe read a book. And then by that time, I'm generally in bed about 10:30, 11 o'clock. I'm asleep. So that's my day, and as you can tell, it doesn't allow for a lot of my extra hobbies, and that's the part that I'm really trying to figure out. How do I allow for extra hobbies so that I'm not this one-dimensional person who is just working and then watching TV and eating in routine? I'm just being very honest about that. That's my current routine, and I would like to break away from that slightly, but that's how I'm operating now. So I'd love to hear, I know some of your normal day might be a little more intense than mine from time to time, but I'd like to hear yours as well.
No, this is, first of all, you have organized it very well than many people can, and the struggles that you are having about the extracurricular activities is also very normal. When you are ambitious and you have so many goals and you are pushing for those goals, some of the other extracurricular activities which truly are not ending up with a certificate or end result or anything like that, or not anybody's watching over it, it tends to be lapsed. And there are a few thoughts I have that I will go over with all of you as well as you, and you probably know how I do it.
Everyone
Anyways,
can see you giving me life advice on camera now instead of off camera.
I couldn't resist it. I'm 31 years I've done it, and I'll continue to do it till I leave your world. But be as it may, the perfect way to be happy and bring balance is to first determine what are the things you don't like but you should be doing. So once you determine that, and I do not know many people who like exercise, including me, although I rarely miss exercising, I just dread doing exercises. So it is so painful to go through entire day and worry that before I go to bed, I got to do something that I don't like. And that's the thing that you alluded to, is let's get it out of our way. To me, the most cumbersome but the most satisfying is also exercise. And that has helped me a long way. It has helped my energy. It helped the way I think. It helped during my recent episode with my heart. All that kind of stuff. All of those things maintain my ideal body weight, although I've done very well gaining weight during COVID. But it will all go as soon as the determination will be made, and we are almost there. So first and the foremost thing is to get rid of the stuff that you don't like. And there are certain other things too, that some of the things in the house you are supposed to do, or some of the things that you are supposed to do at work that you don't like, or some of the people you dread to make a call because you know it's not going to be a pleasant conversation. Either you missed a deadline or somebody else didn't do something, whatever. It is never pleasant, right? So let's get those things out of our way. And that's what I like to do, is to, and then suddenly there is relief. As soon as you get those things done, especially every day I finish exercise, I just feel like I'm a new man. And then suddenly somebody has opened the gate for happiness to me. Because now I don't have to worry about it till next day morning. So same thing. So
I think it's so funny that being your daughter, I'm such a procrastinator, and you are explaining the anti-procrastinator.
that is the key. And
mantra.
You're right. You can procrastinate. Don't procrastinate what is important in your life, because that's probably the most important message of this work-life balance is, if you want to call that, or just call it life balance, is procrastination of important things in life brings all this unhappiness in our, because we can't be ostrich. We can't just dig our head in and say things will just go away. Now, it does go away in some cases. They may not go away the way you want it to go away. It may have adverse impact on your overall existence. So in my mind, that is first thing I do is getting rid of those things. And if that requires few emails or a few of these things, I always do that. Now, by God's grace, I have a lot of luxury of people helping me. Some people do it just out of mercy for me because they're seeing I work so hard. So the poor guy, let's help him. So I get.
There's some people in this room.
That's exactly right. So people are just out of mercy. They just help me, and I play dumb so well, and I play poor so well that it works. And then I go to them, and in the first thing in the morning, I'll go to them and say, okay, what about this? What about that? And then get rid of some of those chores on the daily thing.
But I think the reason that works is because you're also working as hard as everyone else, though.
True,
I don't think you're just out there asking people for help because you don't want to do it. It's physically you just don't have the time to accomplish all of this.
And that's what I exactly meant. You're right. I mean, I'm not lazy, or I don't want not to work or get out of working, but sometimes there's just not enough hours in the day, and as ambitious as I am, trying to do too many things sometimes causes you to be rushing into things, and people recognize that. And by God's grace, I got great infrastructure that people recognize my shortcomings, and just so that I'm totally not perceived outside to the outside world, my shortcomings, they fill it in and make me look bigger than who truly I am. But I know very well that, and I always maintain that I'm an average or slightly above average individual in most cases. There are very few things I excel, and the things that where I excel, I really put all the efforts in it, and where I don't, I take people's help. Then what I do next is, just like you said, that the Zooms and the meetings and all those things are set. The way I have been able to combine the balance is, that I get my Flixie email. This is an entertainment that comes to me every day, and it takes about 3 to 4 minutes. But in 3 to 4 minutes, whatever happened the previous day in the world, something entertaining, whether it's a magic show or whether it's a dance show or whether it is somebody's creating a comedy, it just one email in 3 to 4 minutes.
You know how I describe Flixie? It's the TikTok for adults.
That's exactly right.
It's the equivalent of exploration on TikTok for
That's
adults.
very true. That's very true. And somebody does it for you. So it's very easy. And it mixes up in my work. So between 2 meetings, I got entertainment.
This is not a lie, folks. He is extremely committed to Flixie. He's been sharing Flixie videos with us for years. And we're like, Dad, why is this so entertaining to you? He's like, this is the greatest video on earth. You really do enjoy it.
And then I will go through in between meetings, Dear Abby. I think a person like me, you were born and raised here. A person like me who come from different country, to understand this, the culture of United States, this kind of question answer forums have really helped me. And today also they help me. It takes about a few more minutes in between for my life, but again, I don't feel like I'm working in between. So this is my balance. I balance with all these kind of things that most people will not do during the working hours, that I kind of mix it in with my meetings, and I don't feel like I'm working. In between, I will also go and amuse my family members or somebody else, and it just take a little break. So in short, what I'm saying is, between the things that you have to do certain things that you don't have to do, which gives you pleasure. So start with the most uncomfortable feeling task in the morning, whether it is exercise, calling, we talked about all those things. Then intersperse the areas that you have to do and the areas you don't have to do, but it gives you pleasure. I think those 2 things, if you intermingle. The third thing I would strongly recommend is spend as little a time in eating as you can. Most people will go out for an hour for breakfast, 2 hours for lunch, 3 hours for dinner. I'm just exaggerating just to make my point. It's not necessary. The world has moved on. The world has changed. So we can find ways to eat. If you want to eat more, I have no objection to it. But do it, prepare it the previous day or previous weekend, and then just warm it up. You don't need to leave wherever you are and travel and all that kind of stuff. So try to be cognizant about your time, where you're wasting time. And then, I don't take phone calls. I don't respond to email, text. Only way to communicate with me is email on a timely basis. So people who communicate with me, they know that if they text, they may get an answer a week later. They call, they may get an answer 2 weeks later. I answer every single text, I answer every single phone call, and I answer every single email. But I've reversed the lining of it. Emails, I answer right away, because what it does is you stay on the point, you can do what you want to say, and sometimes you're angry, you don't want to say certain things. There is a way you can manage your outlook. So it doesn't send out. When you press the button send, the email doesn't go out. It still stays. And then when you're cooled off, you can then send the send button again. So that's how I bring the balance. Why I'm bringing all these things? These are all the things that brings balance to my life. And the other thing is, I'm just like you said, I'm somewhat privileged and fortunate, and in that I can travel a lot. And traveling should be part of your life to bring a balance. Fortunately for me, I travel 3 to 4 times a month. A lot of it is not necessarily that I have to, but I decide to do it. And the difference between the stress and no stress is something that you have to do becomes a stress eventually. Some things you don't have to do and you prefer to do it does not become a stress. So if you intermingle those two things in your life, I think it really would bring balance. And then give it a try. It's worth doing that. And the last piece is all my extra projects, the extracurricular projects, I leave them in a software called Rike, and I create a task out of it, and I call it weekend, Saturday, monthly, yearly task. And then on the weekend, before I start doing emails, I start doing those tasks, like bicycling or taking pictures or going meeting with people. Those are the things that are important, or reading a good book, or listening to audiobooks. All of those things I do it on a weekend, as well as while I'm exercising. But that allows me to do things that the extracurricular activities that I was missing out by creating this balance. So this is my way of balancing, and it seems to have worked so far.
So can I ask you, number one, the eating thing is actually it's comical, but I find it actually important, because I remember talking to you last year during COVID saying, I'm spending all my time cooking all of these meals, and one person's vegan and another person's keto and another person wants this. And I said, this is too much. I'm spending the whole day either cooking or cleaning up what I just cooked. And my eating time is 10 minutes, 15 minutes, but then it turns into this 2-hour issue. And so I think that the distinction that I've had to come to is that there's eating for sustenance and eating to have energy to move through your day. And then there's eating for enjoyment and maybe a social endeavor if you have a dinner with a friend, and that's something where it's more about the social. So I've had to learn how to categorize different types of eating, because at the end of the day, it's all a function of time. And I think a lot of people, we did at pre-COVID, spent a lot of time going out, doing 1.5-hour lunches, and it if there's no real purpose behind it outside of just eating in and of itself, it can be a big time drain. So that I agree with that, and find that it was comical, but I think it's an interesting point. And secondly, I guess my question is, Doc, you have this ability now, right? You're the chairman, and you've worked so hard to get to this place where you can do all of these things. But when you were my age and you were just starting out in your cardiology career, and then on top of that, I think it would be a couple years from my age that you would start Encore. So now you're doing two things at once. Was it an active decision that I will have no personal? But then yet again, you were always available for us, not necessarily always in person. So I wonder, what was your attitude then? Because now I think it's a little different than what it was then.
No, you're right. The life has changed significantly for me over the past several decades. But what got sacrificed was sleep. And one of the things that, whether you call it a blessing or a curse, when we were getting trained as a cardiologist or a doctor, putting a 100-hour week was not a big deal. It was expected out of everybody. So we kind of learned. I always say that I can pretty much sleep standing and not to worry about anything else around me, or I can sleep while there is a great sound game going on or a music show going on. I can literally go to sleep, but that's nothing special about me. It is just the training I had that allows me to do that. So I did sacrifice the sleep, and which is not what I recommend to people. Sleep is very important factor in your well-being. But although because of the meditation, yoga, etc., I believe I could reduce the REM sleep and increase the deep sleep, which is what matters the most to a certain extent, I believe. So that helped me. And also, I think tremendous support from your mother, the people around me also helped me. So I didn't have to do mundane stuff, and I just could be there. Like if you had a game, I could just show up when you actually was participating, and I didn't have to take you to the school or do all those kind of stuff. So when the actual event happened, I was there. So again, it was all designed and planned things. And then having a good partner also helps. Your mom always supported me and said, we'll sacrifice something for a better future. She's still waiting for that better future. So someday that will happen. But it has been a great ride. So Nili, before we turn this episode off, which 3 pieces of advice you can give to others who are somewhat in your shoes, primarily a young person, very ambitious, and female, obviously, has multiple responsibilities. If you just have to pinpoint 3 things to get their life in balance, what would you recommend?
Well, gosh, I'm no expert. However, there have been a few things that have really helped me. And as I mentioned, I manage about 9 people, and 8 of those are women. So I deal with a lot of these issues even within my own organization. The first I will say is I just live and die by my calendar. So if it's in my calendar, I'm going to make the commitment to do it so that my day is planned from the start and I'm not overthinking every hour of that day, what am I supposed to be doing? I just follow my calendar. And one tip that I started incorporating in my calendar is I put restricted times. So I have Calendly, like you do, where people can just schedule times to speak to me without me going back and forth with them to commit to those times. But I learned that if I put a few restricted times in my day, then that gives me a space to breathe, maybe do a couple things that I don't have to do that are more fun, and it slows down the pace of my day to where I don't feel so overwhelmed on the work side from 8 a.m. all the way to 5 p.m. So if you can even plan out the times that you're going to relax, then you can truly allow yourself that opportunity to relax. And that's what I find in my organization a lot. As women, we're always multitasking. Oh, I can do this with this. I can do that with that. And I tell my ladies, I say, sometimes you just need to stop what you're doing and take a deep breath. Don't be, and I'm guilty of this. Last night, I was watching TV while on the laptop. Try not to mix the two things all the time. Try to, when you're really watching TV, allow yourself, this is my time. I like to do this. Don't be thinking about the 15 things that you have to do. Just be in the moment so that you truly can recharge for the next day, because this is certainly a marathon and not a sprint. So that's one thing. Point number 2, I would say, keep your routines sacred. So if you're building a morning routine, I know it's kind of almost comical at this point, because if you go on YouTube, every single Instagram or YouTube guru has a morning routine. But I think there's something to be said about that. And even you, Doc, religious about morning routines. And I found whether I'm going to incorporate 15 minutes of meditation or 5 minutes of journaling, it should happen the same every day, and you start your day at the same time, and you do those things that really fill you up in the morning, that are encompassing your morning routine. And again, it's on autopilot, so you don't have to really think about it. So that's my second piece, I would say, of advice. And third is, we're all trying to do everything at the same time, and we need to give ourselves a little grace. So if it doesn't work for you and you don't have the perfect balance that day, and you do more work than you thought you would, or you're drained from taking care of the kids, etc., I just think as women, we always have to show ourselves just a little bit of grace and allow ourselves the opportunity to forgive ourselves for what it might be that we wanted, because we set these expectations that I'm going to work only for 5 hours today, and then I'm going to do this much extra, I'm going to do this, and then it doesn't work. And now we're all disappointed that the day just didn't happen for us. But we still got a lot done. You still accomplished probably, I don't want to be dramatic, but probably more than your male counterparts did that day. And you're going to be fine. And I think that that's the point that I try to kind of take home from every day, is that you still got through your day. You did what you could, and you accomplished what you did, and you should be proud of that. And the next day is just another opportunity to fine tune it just a little bit more. So those are kind of my 3 takeaways in the position that I'm in today that has helped me in this journey.
So in summary, again, thanks for coming over and sharing your thoughts and ideas with our audience, and also me. I think I also learned something about you that I didn't know before, which helps. And again, thank you guys for joining the show today. Please follow all the social media for more videos and more of this kind of, for a lack of better term, gossips or life lessons of the experiences from a guy from India who came with $10.45 and amassed a lot of experiences. Visit the website, very simple website, www.bharatsangani.com, and please sign up for the newsletter, or if you look for mentorship, etc., or want to learn more about life as a business, then go and sign up for the on the website, and we'll communicate more. Till then, thank you again, and thank you, Nili, for joining.
Thank you for having me.